I'm not sure it was all about money. I think there's two elements to this. Sebastian had lost a bit of faith and trust in the team that they really could turn this around. The personnel around him. Obviously, there were a lot of shenanigans last year where both he and his teammate Charles Leclerc were squabbling over the same piece of tarmac, occasionally running into each other, as we saw. And I think they've just sort of fallen out of love a little bit with each other, and probably the terms of the new contract didn't suit him. But I don't believe it was just, the headline number. I think it is more, it was time to go their separate ways.
Yeah. Do you think, though, if they'd continued to say to Sebastian, "You still are number one, you're still our guide for the championship," which is what they had said before, was that what he wanted to hear and what he didn't hear?
I would imagine Sebastian wouldn't be that fussed about being a clear number one, but he would not want to be a clear number two in the team and have to yield to Leclerc. Leclerc's obviously the future, given his age of the team. He's 11 years younger than Sebastian, has already shown a fair turn of speed and maturity and a safe pair of hands for the future. And so I imagine they needed to get some elbow room for their effective de facto number one for the future.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about Vettel's future in a moment, but what about Ferrari's future partner for Leclerc? Could it still be Lewis Hamilton? What prospect of that? And is it a useful little negotiating chip for Hamilton as he embarks on his negotiations with his current team, Mercedes?
I don't think Ferrari would necessarily want to do that and have a Hamilton-Leclerc lineup. I think they're more likely to go for Carlos Sainz, the current McLaren driver. This is a really strange time, Craig, in that driver contracts are coming to their end, to fruition, and teams are having to make decisions based on the future with no current season as an indicator. So this plays into the hands, to an extent, of young but well-experienced young drivers. The new kids in town haven't had a chance to prove themselves as a Leclerc or a Verstappen of the future, for example. And so they're working blind at the moment. But I see a scenario that is Sainz to Ferrari, Daniel Ricciardo to McLaren, and then that leaves a seat at Renault, which probably would be Alonso. I don't necessarily see a home for Sebastian Vettel. Let's wait and see. We know he's talking to other teams, so clearly there's and he's got such a great turn of speed at the end of last season. So, there's a scenario I'm throwing out there for you, but I wonder if it's the end of the road for Seb, or whether he will take a midfield situation with promise.
You really, because there will be this pairing of Hamilton still. Why not Hamilton? Maybe in specific terms, why would it be such an upset to the equilibrium at Ferrari to bring him in?
Well, I'm not entirely sure Hamilton's available. I think he made it quite clear when we did the interview with him on Sky F1 that Mercedes is his future, both in the cockpit and outside of it, into the distant future. You've got to do Ferrari want two bulls in one field effectively with Leclerc and Hamilton? Takes quite a bit of managing. They have had that before, but I'm not sure that's really on the table. Who knows? But I think Lewis has publicly said he doesn't want to break his ties with Mercedes-Benz. Every race he's ever won in Formula One, whether it be in a McLaren or a Mercedes, had a Mercedes engine. And there's something he can build on in the future. He point blank says he doesn't want to take the Ferrari route.
Just finally then on this subject, Alain Prost went to Ferrari, couldn't deliver them the championship. Fernando Alonso did the same, and now Vettel. Of those three, does Vettel come out of this perhaps with, well, maybe the most damaged legacy? It's still a fine legacy, but he'd set his heart on emulating Schumacher, and maybe in a sense he blew opportunities too.
Yes, if you think back to Hockenheim 2018, I think that was the moment where the rot started, when he had that silly incident when he at the hairpin. Um, he's won, I believe, 14 races for the team, and he's still got a great turn of speed, but he started making mistakes despite showing speed and qualifying pace and great racecraft. But there were too many mistakes. I think it's been a frustrating experience for him. With Alonso, they so nearly won a couple of championships, and then it all fell apart. Seb's finished in the top 3 of the championship 3 times, but it's fallen apart. And Ferrari have pinned their colours to young Charles Leclerc for the future. There's been a lot of management change at Ferrari. I guess they need some stability now, and maybe a couple of experienced young guns are what they need now, who they can control with a clear number 1 in the team.
Could Vettel retire after this season?
I think there's let's hope we have a season for starters, and I think there's a good chance that Sebastian, will step away from Formula One. Whether it's for good or not, as we see with other drivers, remains to be seen. The Renault seat, if I'm right in Ricciardo going to McLaren, the Renault seat is a work seat and may appeal to him.